Dust devils danced across the parched land, mirroring the whirlwind in Jedediah Stone's heart. He was a man of immense wealth, his ranch sprawling across the horizon like a king's domain. Cattle grazed on seemingly endless pastures, and his coffers overflowed with silver. Yet, a profound loneliness gnawed at him, a constant companion in his grand but desolate existence. Jedediah was known throughout the territory for his sharp business acumen and unwavering determination. He'd carved his empire from nothing, battling the elements and outsmarting rivals. But somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten the softer virtues. Kindness was a weakness he couldn't afford, or so he believed. His ranch hands respected him, even feared him, but no one truly knew Jedediah. He saw relationships as transactions, a means to an end. And now, nearing his middle years, he needed an heir, someone to inherit his legacy. He needed a wife. Thus, he turned to the burgeoning industry of mail-order brides, viewing it as simply another business arrangement. He'd pay for a suitable woman, and she would provide him with what he needed. Love? That was a frivolous notion, a luxury he couldn't afford. The decision made, Jedediah wasted no time. He rode into the nearest town, his presence causing a stir. He rarely bothered with social niceties, preferring the company of his cattle to that of people. He strode directly into the newspaper office, the bell above the door jingling a discordant tune in the otherwise silent room. The editor, a wiry man named Mr. Abernathy, looked up with a mixture of apprehension and curiosity. Jedediah Stone in his office was an event. "Stone," Abernathy greeted, his voice a touch shaky. "What can I do for you?" "Advertisement," Jedediah stated, his voice gruff. "Mail-order bride." Abernathy's eyebrows shot up. He'd heard rumors of Jedediah's loneliness, but hadn't expected this star. He cleared his throat. "All right, Stone. What are you looking for? What should the advertisement say?" Jedediah paused, considering. He wasn't looking for love or companionship, not really. He was looking for a solution. "Say I'm a wealthy rancher," he began, "seeking a wife to manage my household and bear me children. Good health, strong work ethic preferred. In return, she'll have a comfortable life, plenty to eat, and a roof over her head." He emphasized the comfortable life part, hoping to attract a woman motivated by practicality rather than romance. The advertisement, stark and to the point, ran in the next edition of the High Plains Gazette-Star. It read, "Wanted, wife. Rancher seeks woman of good health and strong constitution to manage household and provide offspring. Comfortable living provided. Inquire at Stone Ranch, or reply to Box 34. Star." Jedediah made no mention of love, companionship, or even basic pleasantries. The ad was a reflection of his pragmatic nature, stripped of any romantic pretense. He saw no need for flowery language or false promises. He was offering a secure future, and that, he believed, should be enough. He even stipulated certain physical requirements, though he'd said them privately to Mr. Abernathy, who, after some persuasion, agreed not to include them directly in the public notice. Jedediah wanted a woman who could withstand the harsh realities of ranch life, someone capable of hard labor and bearing healthy children. He wasn't looking for a delicate flower, he needed a sturdy oak. He imagined a woman robust and dutiful, someone who wouldn't complain or question his authority. He expected obedience and efficiency, not affection or conversation. His expectations were as vast and unforgiving as the landscape he commanded. Far away, in a cramped and dusty attic room in a bustling city back east, Ilara clutched a newspaper, her heart pounding against her ribs. The city, with all its noise and grime, offered little opportunity for a young woman with no family and even fewer prospects. She worked tirelessly in a factory, her days a monotonous cycle of clattering machines and aching limbs. The meager wages barely covered her rent and kept starvation at bay. Her gaze fell upon the advertisement, stark and unadorned, yet promising a life far removed from her current existence. Comfortable living provided, it stated. Those 3 words echoed in her mind, a beacon of hope in her bleak reality. She knew nothing of ranching, nothing of the Wild West, but the thought of escaping the city's suffocating grip was too tempting to resist. Ilara wasn't naive. She understood that this was a business transaction, a marriage of convenience. But perhaps, she dared to hope, there could be more. Perhaps, beneath the gruff exterior of a wealthy rancher, there resided a kind heart. Perhaps, she could find not only security but also a sense of belonging, a place to call home. With trembling hands, she began to pen her reply, pouring her hopes and dreams onto the fragile paper. She had little to lose, and everything to gain. Weeks turned into months as Jedediah received a trickle of replies to his advertisement. He scanned them with a critical eye, dismissing most outright. Some were clearly after his money, their letters dripping with insincere flattery. Others seemed too fragile, too citybred to survive the rigors of ranch life. Then, he received Ilara's letter. Her words were simple, honest, and devoid of any pretense. She spoke of her hard work, her desire for a home, and her willingness to learn. There was a quiet strength in her writing, a resilience that resonated with him, though he couldn't quite explain why. He sent her a curt reply, informing her that he was willing to pay for her train fare west, but making it clear that he expected her to fulfill her end of the bargain. Ilara, upon receiving Jedediah's reply, felt a surge of both excitement and trepidation. She carefully packed her few belongings, a worn Bible, a hand-stitched quilt, and a small collection of pressed flowers, symbols of the life she was leaving behind and the hope she carried for the future. With a mix of sadness and anticipation, she boarded the train, embarking on a journey that would change her life forever. The vast unknown of the West stretched before her, both daunting and exhilarating. The train rattled westward, a metal serpent winding its way through vast landscapes. Days blurred into nights as Ilara gazed out the window, watching the scenery transform from rolling green hills to arid plains and towering mountains. The journey was arduous, the train car crowded and uncomfortable. Dust swirled through the open windows, coating everything in a fine layer of grit. Sleep was fitful, punctuated by the rhythmic clatter of the wheels and the mournful wail of the train whistle. During the long hours, Ilara found herself reflecting on the monumental decision she had made. She was about to marry a man she had never met, a stranger whose only connection to her was a brief exchange of letters. Doubt crept into her mind, whispering insidious questions. What if he was cruel? What if she couldn't meet his expectations? What if she had made a terrible mistake? But then she would remember the factory, the endless drudgery, the gnawing hunger. And she would steel her resolve, clinging to the hope that even a loveless marriage was better than the life she had left behind. She prayed silently, asking for strength and guidance, trusting that somehow she would find her place in this new and unknown world. The train screeched to a halt in the dusty town of Redemption, its arrival a brief interruption to the town's otherwise monotonous existence. Ilara stepped onto the platform, her eye scanning the crowd for a familiar face. She clutched her worn carpet bag, feeling vulnerable and exposed in the unfamiliar surroundings. A tall, imposing figure stood apart from the others, his face etched with a stern expression. Jedediah Stone. He was even more formidable than she had imagined, his presence radiating a sense of power and authority. But as his gaze met hers, she saw a flicker of something else, disappointment. Ilara wasn't the woman he had envisioned. She was smaller than he expected, her features not as striking as he had hoped. Her clothes were simple and worn, a far cry from the elegant dresses he had imagined adorning his wife. And her eyes, though kind, held a spark of independence that he found unsettling. He had expected meekness, obedience, a blank canvas upon which he could paint his expectations. Instead, he saw a woman with her own thoughts, her own spirit. A wave of irritation washed over him. He had paid for a bride, and he felt cheated. He offered a curt nod. "Ilara," he said, his voice devoid of warmth. "Let's go." The ride to Stone Ranch was silent, the only sound the rhythmic clip-clop of the horses' hooves. Ilara stole glances at Jedediah, trying to decipher the man behind the stern facade. His jaw was set, his eyes fixed on the horizon. He offered no conversation, no explanation, nothing. As they approached the ranch, Ilara was struck by its size and scale. The main house was large and imposing, built of sturdy stone, a testament to Jedediah's wealth and success. But there was a starkness to it, a lack of warmth that chilled her to the bone. The surrounding landscape was equally unforgiving, a vast expanse of dry, dusty land. Inside, the house was clean and well-maintained, but sparsely decorated. It felt more like a fortress than a home. Ilara had expected luxury, but she found only emptiness. She had hoped for a welcoming embrace, but she was met with indifference. Despite her initial disappointment, Ilara refused to be discouraged. She had come too far, sacrificed too much, to give up now. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and resolved to make the best of her situation. She would find a way to bring warmth and life to this desolate place, even if it was the last thing she did. The initial weeks of their marriage were a trial for both of them. Jedediah treated Ilara more like a hired hand than a wife, assigning her chores with a curtness that stung. He expected meals to be prepared on time, the house to be spotless, and his needs to be met without question. He rarely spoke to her beyond giving instructions, and any attempt at conversation was met with a grunt or a dismissive wave of his hand. Ilara struggled to adapt to his rigid ways. She was accustomed to hard work, but she longed for connection, for kindness. She missed the simple pleasures of conversation, laughter, and shared moments. She tried to engage Jedediah, to learn about his life and his ranch, but he remained closed off, a fortress of stoicism. She found herself increasingly isolated, her only companions the ranch hands, who, though polite, were wary of Jedediah's displeasure. She yearned for a friend, someone to confide in, but she was alone in this vast and unforgiving land. Despite the loneliness and the harsh treatment, Ilara refused to break. She would prove to Jedediah that she was more than just a mail-order bride, she was a woman of strength, resilience, and unwavering spirit. She would earn his respect, even if she couldn't win his love. Despite Jedediah's coldness, Ilara refused to be defeated. She began to subtly transform the ranch, adding touches of beauty and kindness wherever she could. She started with a small patch of barren earth near the front porch, planting wildflowers she had gathered from the surrounding hills. The vibrant colors provided a stark contrast to the muted tones of the landscape, a splash of hope in a desolate world. She also started offering small acts of help to the ranch hands. She mended their clothes, baked them cookies, and offered a listening ear to their troubles. Her kindness was genuine, her concern heartfelt. At first, they were hesitant, unsure how to respond to such unexpected generosity. But slowly, they began to warm to her, appreciating her gentle spirit and her willingness to lend a hand. Jedediah, of course, noticed these changes. He scowled at the flowers, dismissing them as a frivolous waste of time. He watched Ilara interacting with the ranch hands, his expression unreadable. He couldn't understand why she would bother with such gestures, why she would waste her energy on acts of kindness that seemed to serve no practical purpose. Yet, despite himself, he found himself drawn to the changes she was making, a subtle shift in the atmosphere of his ranch. He would never admit it, but a small part of him appreciated the warmth and light she was bringing into his life. Jedediah found himself increasingly drawn to observing Ilara. He would watch her from a distance, his gaze hidden beneath the brim of his hat, as she interacted with the ranch hands. He noticed the way she listened intently to their stories, her eyes filled with genuine empathy. He saw how she offered words of encouragement, a comforting touch, a helping hand. He witnessed her tending to a wounded bird, nursing it back to health with gentle care. He watched her share her meager possessions with those less fortunate, her generosity knowing no bounds. He saw the smiles she brought to the faces of those around her, the sense of hope she instilled in their hearts. Slowly, Jedediah began to question his initial assessment of Ilara. He had seen her as a means to an end, a transaction to be completed. But he was starting to realize that she was so much more than he had bargained for. She possessed a compassionate nature, a genuine goodness that he had never encountered before. He had always believed that kindness was a weakness, but Ilara's strength lay in her ability to care for others. He started to wonder if perhaps he had been wrong all along. The seed of doubt, once planted, began to take root, challenging his long-held beliefs and forcing him to confront the emptiness of his own existence. The drought hit suddenly and mercilessly. The once lush pastures turned to dust, the creek dwindled to a trickle, and the cattle grew weak and listless. Fear gripped the ranch hands, their livelihoods threatened by the unforgiving elements. Jedediah, hardened by years of battling the land, remained stoic, but Ilara could see the worry etched on his face. One sweltering afternoon, a young ranch hand, barely more than a boy, was thrown from his horse while trying to herd the cattle to the dwindling water source. He lay unconscious, his leg twisted at an unnatural angle. Panic erupted among the other ranch hands, unsure of what to do. Ilara, however, remained calm. Drawing upon her knowledge of first aid gleaned from her days in the factory, she quickly assessed the situation. She stabilized the boy's leg, fashioned a makeshift splint, and sent for the doctor in town. While they waited, she tended to the boy's injuries, offering him sips of water and words of comfort. Jedediah watched in amazement as Ilara took charge, her quick thinking and caring actions bringing order to the chaos. He had always relied on brute force and unwavering determination to overcome adversity, but Ilara showed him that compassion and resourcefulness could be just as powerful. Her actions not only saved the boy's life but also instilled a sense of hope in the hearts of the weary ranch hands. That day marked a turning point in Jedediah's perception of Ilara. He had always seen her as a transaction, a means to an end, a wife to manage his household and bear him children. But her bravery and resourcefulness in the face of crisis revealed a strength and character he had never anticipated. He watched as she tirelessly cared for the injured ranch hand, her gentle touch and soothing words bringing comfort to the boy's pain. He saw the gratitude in the eyes of the other ranch hands, their respect for Ilara growing with each passing day. He realized that she had become more than just his wife, she had become a vital part of the ranch, a source of hope and inspiration for those around her. The incident forced him to confront his own shortcomings. He had always prided himself on his strength and self-reliance, but he realized that he had neglected the importance of compassion and human connection. He had built his empire on hard work and determination, but he had forgotten the value of kindness and empathy. He began to see Ilara not as a possession, but as a person, a woman of remarkable strength and unwavering spirit. He started to appreciate her unique qualities, her gentle nature, and her unwavering commitment to helping others. He was no longer sure what he felt, but he knew that his initial assessment of her had been woefully inadequate. She was far more than he had ever imagined. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Jedediah found himself sitting on the porch with Ilara. A comfortable silence settled between them, a stark contrast to the strained silences of their early days. He found himself wanting to talk, to share something of himself, something he had kept hidden for so long. "My mother," he began, his voice rough with disuse, "died when I was just a boy. A fever took her quick." He paused, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. "My father, he wasn't much for showing affection. He taught me how to work, how to survive, but not how to feel." He continued, his voice growing softer as he spoke of the loneliness he had endured as a child, the weight of responsibility he had carried on his young shoulders. He told her about a previous heartbreak, a woman he had loved and lost to another man, a betrayal that had hardened his heart and made him wary of trusting anyone again. "I built these walls around myself," he confessed, "to protect myself from getting hurt again. I thought if I didn't need anyone, no one could ever disappoint me." He looked at Ilara, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and vulnerability. "But you've chipped away at those walls, Ilara. You've shown me that maybe, just maybe, it's okay to let someone in." Ilara listened intently, her heart aching for the pain he had carried for so long. She didn't interrupt, didn't offer platitudes or empty reassurances. She simply listened, her eyes filled with empathy and understanding. When he was finished, she reached out and gently took his hand, her touch warm and comforting. "Jedediah," she said softly, "I understand. I know what it's like to feel alone, to feel like you have to protect yourself from the world." She shared her own stories of hardship and loss, her voice filled with vulnerability and strength. She told him about the factory, the poverty, the loneliness she had endured before answering his advertisement. "But you don't have to carry that burden anymore," she said, squeezing his hand. "You don't have to be alone. Jedediah looked at her, his eyes searching hers. He had never encountered such genuine empathy, such unconditional acceptance. He realized that in all his years, he had never truly been seen, never truly been accepted for who he was, flaws and all. He had always been Jedediah Stone, the wealthy rancher, the man of power and authority. But Ilara saw beyond the facade, saw the wounded boy beneath the hardened exterior. And in that moment, he felt a sense of peace he had never known before. He wasn't alone anymore. A subtle shift began to occur in Jedediah's behavior. He was still a man of few words, but his actions spoke volumes. One morning, Ilara awoke to find a small bouquet of wildflowers lying on her bedside table, their delicate petals a splash of color in the otherwise austere room. He never said a word about them, but Ilara knew they were from him, a silent gesture of appreciation. He started helping her with chores, carrying water from the well, chopping wood for the fire, tasks he had previously deemed beneath him. He still maintained his gruff exterior, but Ilara could see a flicker of warmth in his eyes, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. He even started to engage in conversation, asking her about her day, her thoughts, her feelings. He listened intently to her responses, his gaze unwavering, his interest genuine. He was learning to connect with her on a deeper level, to see her not just as his wife, but as his partner, his friend. These small acts of kindness, though seemingly insignificant, meant the world to Ilara. They were a sign that Jedediah was changing, that he was opening his heart to her, that their relationship was evolving into something more than just a business arrangement. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but she was filled with hope that they could build a life together, a life filled with love, respect, and mutual understanding. The change in Jedediah and Ilara's relationship didn't go unnoticed by the community. Initially, the townsfolk had been wary of Ilara, viewing her as an outsider, a gold digger who had snared the wealthy Jedediah Stone. But as they witnessed her warmth and generosity, their perception began to shift. She volunteered at the local schoolhouse, teaching the children how to read and write. She organized community gatherings, bringing people together for potlucks and dances. She nursed the sick, comforted the grieving, and offered a helping hand to anyone in need. People were drawn to her genuine kindness, her unwavering optimism, and her infectious laughter. She had a way of making everyone feel valued and appreciated. Slowly, but surely, the community embraced her, welcoming her into their fold with open arms. Jedediah watched all of this with a mixture of pride and amazement. He saw how much Ilara had improved the lives of those around him, how she had brought joy and laughter to a town that had long been defined by hardship and isolation. He realized that her kindness was not a weakness, but a strength, a force that could transform not only his own life, but the lives of everyone around him. He began to understand the true meaning of community, the power of connection, and the importance of giving back. He saw that Ilara had brought more than just beauty and warmth to his ranch, she had brought life and hope to his entire world. One starlit night, as they sat on the porch, a comfortable silence enveloping them, Jedediah looked at Ilara and realized the truth. It wasn't a sudden epiphany, but a slow, dawning realization that had been building within him for weeks, months even. He had fallen in love with her. Not because of her beauty, although he now found her captivating. Not because of her ability to manage his household, although she had proven to be more than capable. He had fallen in love with her because of her grace, her unwavering kindness, her indomitable spirit, and her kind heart. He loved the way she saw the best in everyone, the way she always put others before herself, the way she could bring light and joy to even the darkest of situations. He loved her resilience, her strength, and her unwavering belief in the power of hope. He had started this marriage as a business transaction, viewing Ilara as nothing more than a means to an end. But she had shown him that love was not a weakness, but a strength, a force that could transform lives and build communities. He realized that he had been wrong all along, that he had been living a life devoid of true meaning and connection. Ilara had opened his heart, shown him the beauty of compassion, and taught him the true meaning of love. He knew that he had to tell her, that he could no longer keep his feelings hidden. He took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He turned to Ilara, his gaze sincere and vulnerable. "Ilara," he began, his voice rough with emotion, "I need to tell you something." He confessed his feelings, his words halting at first, but gaining strength as he spoke. He told her how he had initially seen her as nothing more than a business arrangement, a means to an end. He acknowledged his coldness, his harsh treatment, his inability to see her for the remarkable woman she was. "I was wrong, Ilara," he said, his voice filled with regret. "I was blind. I didn't understand the true meaning of love, the power of kindness, the importance of connection." He paused, his eyes searching hers. "I treated you poorly, Ilara. I was selfish and ungrateful. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for it anyway." He reached out and took her hand, his touch gentle and pleading. "I've fallen in love with you, Ilara," he confessed, his voice barely a whisper. "Not because of what you can do for me, but because of who you are. You've shown me the beauty of compassion, the strength of kindness, the true meaning of love. You've changed my life, Ilara, and I'll be forever grateful." He looked at her, his eyes filled with hope and trepidation. "Please, Ilara, can you ever forgive me?" Tears welled up in Ilara's eyes as she listened to Jedediah's heartfelt confession. She had seen glimpses of the man beneath the gruff exterior, the wounded boy hidden behind the walls of stoicism. She had hoped that one day, he would be able to break free from his past and embrace the possibility of love. "Jedediah," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion, "there's nothing to forgive." She squeezed his hand, her touch conveying her understanding and compassion. "I saw your pain, Jedediah. I knew that you had built those walls to protect yourself." She admitted that she had also grown to care for him, touched by his vulnerability and his willingness to change. She had seen his kindness, his generosity, his unwavering commitment to the ranch and the community. She had witnessed his transformation, his journey from a lonely, isolated man to a caring, compassionate partner. "I came here hoping for a better life," she confessed, "but I never expected to find love. You've shown me that even the most hardened hearts can be softened, that even the most unlikely of couples can find happiness together." She smiled at him, her eyes shining with love and forgiveness. Jedediah's heart swelled with joy. He had found love in the most unexpected of places, with the most unlikely of women. He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her, holding her tight. "I promise, Ilara," he said, his voice filled with sincerity, "I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I'll build this relationship on love, respect, and trust, not just obligation." Ilara rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. She knew that the road ahead would not always be easy, but she was confident that they could overcome any obstacle, as long as they had each other. They reaffirmed their commitment to each other, vowing to build a life together based on mutual love and respect. They agreed to put the past behind them, to forgive each other's mistakes, and to focus on creating a future filled with happiness and fulfillment. Their marriage, which had started as a business transaction, had blossomed into something truly beautiful, a testament to the transformative power of love. From that moment on, their relationship was built on a foundation of genuine affection, unwavering support, and a shared commitment to creating a better world. And so, Jedediah and Ilara embarked on a new chapter in their lives, their love story a beacon of hope in the vast and unforgiving landscape of the Old West. They worked together, side by side, building a thriving and compassionate community around their ranch. Jedediah, once a man driven solely by wealth and power, learned the importance of giving back, using his resources to help those in need. He established a schoolhouse for the children of the community, providing them with an education and a brighter future. He built a hospital, ensuring that everyone had access to medical care, regardless of their ability to pay. Ilara continued to be the heart and soul of the community, her kindness and generosity touching the lives of everyone she met. She organized social events, bringing people together and fostering a sense of belonging. She tended to the sick, comforted the grieving, and offered a listening ear to anyone who needed it. Their ranch became a sanctuary, a place where people could find hope, support, and a sense of community. Their love story became a legend, a testament to the transformative power of grace, proving that even the most hardened hearts can be softened, and that even the most unlikely of couples can find happiness together. The end.